Discovered my husband cheating with my sister, divorced him and cut off toxic family. I discovered that my husband was cheating with my sister. I divorced him and went no contact with my toxic family. Years later, things took an unexpected and painful turn. I was married to Ryan, my husband, a 32-year-old man, for 6 years. I believed we had a strong and stable relationship. Like any couple, we experienced our fair share of drama over the years, but we worked through it and came out stronger. I thought we had a loving and supportive marriage, the kind that could weather any storm. That belief held firm until about 8 months ago. Everything began to shift when my younger sister, Star, who is 28 years old, moved back to our hometown. She had been living in Florida since she was 18, and her return came under less than ideal circumstances. Star's long-term boyfriend had broken up with her and moved to a new city, leaving her completely stranded. According to her, the breakup happened because he was secretly cheating on her, with men. The details surrounding their split were hazy, and honestly, the story she gave seemed a little far-fetched to me. I had only met the guy 3 times over the 5 years they were together. Once during Christmas visits when she brought him home, and another time when Ryan and I stopped by their place during our vacation 3 years ago. From what little I knew of him, he never struck me as the type to lead a double life and leave Star with nothing. Regardless, I tried to reach out to him once, hoping to get some clarity, but I quickly found myself blocked. At that point, I decided to let it go. When Star moved back home, she stayed with my parents, Gina, who is 55, and Jimmy, who is 56, for about a month. She struggled to find work, and I tried to help her out by suggesting that Ryan, being in a higher position at his company, might be able to pull some strings for her. Ryan obliged, and soon Star landed a job in his department. The position was perfectly aligned with her qualifications, and I felt good about being able to help her get back on her feet. Looking back now, I regret that decision more than anything. For some context, Star and I were never particularly close growing up. She was always the golden child in our mother's eyes, and while my dad didn't exactly play favorites, he always went along with whatever my mom decided. The favoritism wasn't glaringly obvious, but showed up in countless small ways. For example, when we both turned 16, we each got cars. Mine was an 8-year-old Dodge Neon, while Star got a nearly new Mitsubishi Eclipse. My parents never hesitated to spend thousands of dollars on her dance practices, costumes, and competitions, even if it meant driving her hours away for events. Meanwhile, when I asked for $50 to attend a local volleyball camp, they would give it to me, but not without making me feel like I was asking for the moon. The imbalance carried into our teenage years. I vividly remember one time when I came home 15 minutes late from a date with my boyfriend. My parents took away my car for an entire month. Yet when Star stumbled in 2 hours past curfew reeking of alcohol, all she got was a stern lecture. By the time she left for college and decided to stay in Florida, I wasn't particularly sad to see her go. When Star moved back and started spending more time at my house, I thought she might be trying to mend our relationship. At first, it seemed nice, almost like she wanted to reconnect. But then I began noticing how familiar she and Ryan were becoming. They had long, animated conversations about seemingly everything. Inside jokes started forming between them, and whenever I tried to join in, they would brush me off, saying it was just a work thing. I asked Ryan about it, and he reassured me that they simply had a lot in common and were collaborating on several projects at the office. I wanted to believe him. Then came the first real red flag. I began noticing that Star was at our house more and more, often while I was still at work. Ryan and I had different schedules. He worked a traditional 8 o'clock a.m. to 4:30 p.m. job, while my hours were 10 o'clock a.m. to 7 o'clock p.m. One day, I came home to find her there again. When I asked why, she casually explained that she and Ryan had work stuff to handle. It became a pattern that made me increasingly uncomfortable. 2 months ago, I noticed something that made me question my sanity. I always make the bed every morning before heading to work, ensuring the pillowcases face a specific way. That evening, Star came over, had dinner with us, and left for my parents' house. When I went to bed, 2 of the pillowcases were reversed. I asked Ryan if he had been in bed that day. He looked startled but denied it, claiming I must have made a mistake. His reaction was unsettling. I started digging for answers. I went through his phone and laptop in secret but found nothing incriminating. Then again, why would they need to text? They worked together for 8 hours a day and spent time together after work. The lack of evidence only made me feel more paranoid, like I was losing my grip on reality. The final straw came 2 weeks ago when my parents invited us over for dinner. Everything seemed fine until I saw it. Ryan walked past Star, and she lightly grabbed his arm. He turned toward her, and she whispered something. Then they pressed their foreheads together briefly, a gesture so intimate it sent a chill down my spine. Ryan jolted upright and continued walking, but Star caught my eye, smiled smugly, and returned to what she was doing, and I felt sick. The mountain of red flags was undeniable. I wanted to believe that I was overthinking, that my fears were unfounded, but deep down, I knew better. I have loved Ryan since I was 21, and the thought of losing him to my own sister was unbearable. I decided to confront him during a weekend getaway I had planned for us. I needed the truth, no matter how much it hurt. Update 1. You were all right, and my world is absolutely destroyed. This past weekend was meant to be a little adventure for the two of us, a chance to reconnect and enjoy each other's company. It started as a perfect Friday night. We had drinks, danced the night away, and shared an intimate evening together. It felt like things were normal, or at least I wanted to believe they were. The next day was supposed to be more of the same. A relaxed morning, a lazy day with plans to enjoy our time together. I almost kept quiet. I almost let the nagging thoughts in my head stay unspoken because I desperately wanted to believe I was wrong. But I wasn't wrong. As we were getting ready to start our Saturday, I asked him point blank, "Are you having an affair with my sister?" The words felt like they didn't even belong to me, like someone else was speaking them. He didn't deny it, he didn't try to lie, his eyes welled up with tears, and he simply said, "Yes." My heart shattered into a million unrecognizable pieces. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't think. Somehow I managed to ask him why. His response was pathetic. He said he was sorry that he never meant for this to happen. He claimed they just clicked and that things spiraled, first a kiss, then more. Hearing it all was like living through a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Then I asked the question I had been dreading. "Have you been sleeping with her in our bed while I was at work?" He turned his head away in shame, and that was all the answer I needed. I couldn't be there anymore. I grabbed my purse and walked out the door. I didn't take anything else, just my dignity or whatever was left of it. I got in my car and drove straight home. He didn't come with me. Instead, a few hours later, he showed up in an Uber with some of my other belongings. He tried to apologize again, but I couldn't bring myself to acknowledge him. Through my tears and overwhelming anger, I watched him pack a bag and leave for a hotel. The next day, I told my parents I needed someone to lean on, someone to remind me I wasn't crazy. But when I told them what had happened, I found no comfort. They already knew. They knew about the affair. They told me they were sorry, but their words felt hollow. They also informed me that Star had left the night before and might not come back for a few days. I had no doubt where she had gone to be with him. That was 3 months ago. Now, our divorce is almost finalized. Ryan moved out immediately and found an apartment to rent. Of course, Star moved in with him right away. As for me, I only communicate with Ryan when it comes to divorce-related matters. At first, he said I could keep the house and the savings. I think guilt drove that decision. But after a few days, he changed his tune and insisted we split the house. I know Star was behind that. Thankfully, I had already moved the savings into a new account, so there was no fight over that. Still, it felt like 9 years of my life were gone in an instant. Ryan has no idea what he is getting himself into. Star is manipulative and self-centered, and one day she will discard him like she has discarded everyone else. She has been cruel throughout all of this. A few days after I found out about the affair, she tagged me in a Facebook post, a selfie of her and Ryan. He was kissing her cheek from behind, and the caption read, "Feeling loved." It was revolting. I immediately logged out of my account and deleted the app from my phone. Not even an hour later, she texted me, "Sorry sis, didn't mean to tag you, no hard feelings, right? I hope we can still be close. You'll meet your soulmate someday too." The audacity was unreal. I blocked her on everything. My parents have been no better. They pretended to be supportive at first, but when I told them I was going no contact with Star and Ryan, my mother had the nerve to say, "I'm sorry this happened, but your sister deserves to be happy too. You'll meet someone and we can put all this behind us." I was furious. I told her about Star's disgusting Facebook post and the vile text she sent me. My mother's response? "Well, you shouldn't be on that stuff anyway." My father? He just sat there, silent as usual. When I asked him directly what he thought, all he said was, "I agree with your mother," and walked out of the room. That was it for me. I am done with all of them. I have gone full no contact with my family. The house will sell soon, and I am planning to move to another state. I haven't told them where or when, and I have no intention of doing so. I just want to leave all of this behind and start fresh. To be honest, I wish them all the worst. They deserve each other. Update 2? Hi everybody. I know it has been 4 years since my last update, and wow, what a whirlwind it has been. A lot has happened, and honestly, I never expected to be where I am now. Let me start by giving you an update about myself because there is a lot to catch up on. First off, I am recently engaged. Yes, you read that right, engaged. It has been a journey to get here, let me tell you. After everything that went down with my ex-husband and my sister, not to mention the complete abandonment by my parents, I was pretty much done with relationships for a while. When I first moved here to Minnesota, I tried dipping my toes back into the dating pool. My first date was mediocre at best. The guy seemed decent at first, but he turned out to be an absolute nightmare. A self-absorbed jerk who made me swear off men entirely. I hit my breaking point after that and decided to focus on myself. That's when therapy became a lifeline for me. Therapy was not easy. It dredged up so much pain and forced me to confront all the betrayal, trauma, and abandonment I had been carrying. It was a grueling process, but I worked through it, and somewhere along the way, I began to heal. A little over a year into my journey, I met James, a 37-year-old chef who completely changed my life. Funny enough, James shares the same first name as my dad, which I find kind of ironic, but that is where the similarities end. James is kind, thoughtful, and genuinely supportive. A complete 180 from anything I've ever experienced. He and his twin brother Jack run a restaurant and bar together, and it is thriving. I am so excited to build a future with him. But enough about me, let's get to the audacity that my family brought into my life. About 9 months after I went no contact with them, they somehow managed to track me down. Mind you, I had gone to great lengths to keep my location private. Only a handful of trusted friends and close cousins knew where I lived. So imagine my shock when I came home one day and found a wedding invitation in my mailbox. It was for Ryan and Star. Yes, that Ryan and Star. The invitation included a nauseating photo of them hugging in a sunflower field, along with a letter from my parents that I can only describe as peak delusion. The letter went something like this: "You need to forgive and put all this behind us. We know things did not go the best, but we are a family and families work through problems." They even had the nerve to claim that Star wanted me to be a bridesmaid, just like she had been for me. Are you kidding me? The audacity was unreal. Reading that letter reopened so many old wounds. I was back in therapy for weeks because of it. While I can laugh about it now, back then it was devastating. I did not respond to the letter or the invitation. Instead, I focused on figuring out who in my extended family had leaked my address to my ex-family and promptly cut them off. Fast forward to last week. Just when I thought I had seen the last of Ryan, he showed up at my apartment unannounced. Let me set the scene. James and I do not live together yet, but we will be moving in together soon. So there I was, home alone, when I opened the door to find Ryan standing there. And let me tell you, he looked way too put together, like he had gone out of his way to dress up for this encounter. It was bizarre. I immediately asked, "What do you want?" He launched into this rehearsed apology about how sorry he was for everything he had done. Then the kicker. "Star and I are divorcing. I found out she was unfaithful our entire marriage. I do not expect you to take me back, but I think we should talk and get some closure." Closure? I almost laughed in his face. Instead, I looked him dead in the eye and said, "No, I give you no closure. You made your bed. Did you honestly think that Star, the woman who has had more visitors than the Holiday Inn, was going to suddenly change just because you put a ring on it? You are even dumber than I thought. I forgive nothing. I want nothing from you. I am better off without you, and that will always be the case. Now go to hell." Then I calmly turned around, walked back into my apartment, and locked the door. I called my landlady, who has become something of a surrogate grandmother to me. Within minutes, her 2 burly nephews, who help with apartment maintenance, were there to escort Ryan off the property. They told him he was now on a ban list, and if he ever came back, the police would be called. I thought that would be the end of it, but of course, Ryan just had to push his luck. The very next evening, I was at James's restaurant, enjoying my usual routine of hanging out while he managed the place. I have grown close to the staff, many of whom are James and Jack's family, and it feels like the kind of family I always wished I had. Out of nowhere, Ryan walked in and sat at my table. James noticed immediately and came over to check on me. He recognized Ryan from photos I had shown him and asked if I wanted him to kick Ryan out. I told him, "Not yet, I have a few questions." Ryan, ever the opportunist, seemed to think this was a win for him. I asked about his divorce from Star purely out of morbid curiosity. He admitted she had been cheating on him with at least 2 married men. Classic Star. When I asked if she got half his assets, Ryan smugly replied that he had stayed in the marriage long enough to stash away savings and sell off some assets, so she only got a fraction of what she could have taken. Turns out Star had to move back in with my parents. I let that information sink in, then said, "Thanks for the update, you can go now." James did not need further prompting. He told Ryan to leave and warned him never to come back. Ryan tried to protest, but the entire restaurant staff was glaring at him, ready to back James up. Defeated, Ryan slunk out the door. That was the last I saw of him, and I sincerely hope it stays that way. Later that night, James's family called to check on me and insisted I stay with him for a few days just to be safe. Their kindness was overwhelming. For the first time in my life, I feel truly cared for, and it is a feeling I will never take for granted. Hopefully, this is the last chapter of Ryan's drama. If not, I am ready for whatever comes next. Update 3. Hello, everyone. I honestly did not think I would have another update to share, but here I am with more news. First, a little about me. I am now a 41-year-old mother of 2 wonderful boys. One is 6 years old, and the other is 2 years old. Life has been busy, but incredibly fulfilling. James and I are doing really well as a couple, and our relationship has only grown stronger over the years. Professionally, I have settled into my role as a part-time office manager for the restaurants. I also wear another hat as a semi-successful self-admitted gem in the world of small business management. Speaking of the restaurants, James's cousin joined the business a few years ago, and together we took a big leap and opened a second location 3 years back. It has been a whirlwind of hard work and late nights, but with all 3 of them, James, his cousin, and myself, staying deeply involved in the operations of both locations, we have managed to turn it into a thriving business. The success of our venture has not only allowed us to grow financially, but has also given each of us the flexibility to carve out some personal time, which, as any business owner knows, is invaluable. On a more personal note, looking back, I am fairly certain I became pregnant while staying with James after his parents insisted I do so during the aftermath of my last update. It was a chaotic time, but their support, albeit a little pushy at first, turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Now, his parents joke that they always planned for this to happen because they secretly wanted to be grandparents all along. They even say it was all part of their grand master plan, which makes us laugh every time. Life might not be perfect, and it certainly did not go according to the script I had imagined years ago, but I can honestly say I am happy. We have come such a long way, and I feel deeply grateful for where we are now. Thank you all for sticking with me through this journey. Now for the update 4. After the last time Ryan tracked me down, I knew it was only a matter of time before someone else from my family, whether it was my parents, my sister, or maybe even an aunt or uncle, would show up. It was not an if, but a when. Still, it did not happen immediately, which lulled me into a bit of a false sense of security. I began to relax. I leaned on the support system I had built around me, which included my husband, some close friends, and James's incredibly supportive family. They made me feel safe, like I could breathe again after years of suffocating under the weight of my toxic family. Eventually, I even ventured back onto social media. Despite staying completely no contact with my immediate family and most of my extended family, I was not naive. I knew that if they really wanted to, they could figure out a way to find me. Still, I convinced myself that they might let me be. For a while, it seemed like they had. It was not until after the birth of our first child, a beautiful, healthy baby boy, that I got the first message. It was from my mother. I stared at the notification for what felt like an eternity, my heart racing as I debated whether to open it. Against my better judgment, I did. The message was as infuriating as it was predictable. She offered what could only be described as a half-hearted apology. She mentioned forgiveness, and then casually inquired about her grandson, as if we were still a family who shared milestones and joy. I was furious. The audacity of her calling my child her grandchild was beyond insulting. I was not about to let her rewrite history to suit her narrative. So I responded. And perhaps I was more brutal than necessary, but I do not regret it. My reply was direct. You do not have any grandchildren. I am not your daughter, and therefore my children have no relation to you. If you want grandchildren so badly, maybe you should encourage Star to get out there and do what she does best. Then I blocked her. Of course, that was not the end of it. My mother created new accounts and attempted to contact me repeatedly. Each time I deleted the messages and blocked her again. For months, I thought that would be enough. It was not. The messages escalated. Suddenly, I was being bombarded with friend requests, direct messages, and emails. Please to reconsider, all centered around missing out on the grandkids' lives and wanting to make amends. I read some of them out of morbid curiosity, but they all sounded like the same hollow sob story. I knew better. I had no intention of letting any of them back into my life, let alone my children's. I had drawn a line in the sand, and I was not going to erase it just because they felt entitled to a relationship.
Then something unexpected happened. My sister Star began reaching out to me directly. Her messages were brief and cryptic, but they carried a desperation that was hard to ignore. She said she needed to speak with me. That was it. No explanation, no context, just a repeated request to talk. After 3 weeks of her persistent messages, I decided to hear her out, though on my terms. I agreed to a Zoom call. Just me, no kids involved. The call started awkwardly. As soon as the video connected, my parents and Star were all there, sitting together like some kind of intervention team. Predictably, the first thing they asked was to see the kids. I shut that down immediately. That's not happening, I told them. They already have 3 grandparents, James's mom, dad, and grandma, and they do not need any more. The mood shifted. They seemed disappointed, but I got the sense that their real agenda had not yet come to light. Star looked terrible. She was pale, thinner than I remembered, and had dark circles under her eyes. My parents, too, looked older, more worn down than I expected. It made me wonder if there was something deeper going on. Then the apologies started. They came all at once, like a floodgate had opened. Star admitted she was wrong for what she had done and claimed she deeply regretted the hurt she caused. My parents echoed similar sentiments, with my mom going on about the importance of family and looking out for one another. I let them talk, though I was not moved by their words. When they finally finished, I stared at them and asked bluntly, "Is that all? If so, I am going to go." That is when everything changed. The facade dropped, and the real reason they had been so desperate to contact me came tumbling out. Star's health was failing, her kidneys were in bad shape, and she needed a transplant. The doctor said a family member would be her best chance for a match. That was why they were so desperate to find me, not to apologize, not to reconnect, but to see if I could save her life. I was stunned, though not surprised. I looked directly at them and asked, "So this is why you are here? You want me to save her? After everything she did to me? After my husband wasn't enough, now you want me to give her a body part too?" My mother snapped. "Stop being like this," she shouted, tears streaming down her face. "All of that was a long time ago. I know you hate us, but she is going to die if she does not get a transplant soon. Is that what you want? For your own sister to die?" I stayed silent, letting her words hang in the air. My father, who had barely spoken up until this point, finally chimed in. His voice was quieter, but the plea in his tone was undeniable.